Welcome to episode 13 of Noob Show. The second episode in a row with the guest. I'd like to welcome Toker, Frakes, and our good friend Mr. Curtis.
I just waved. I forgot it was audio only.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Curtis.
Yes, Curtis. Curtis is my stepdad, for anybody who's wondering. He is married to my mother. That's the definition of stepdad.
That's
how that works.
Yeah, thank you. That's yeah. It's nice to know that we've really got a long reach here to bring guests in.
Oh yeah.
It's been Matt's wife and your stepdad that's really branching.
Well,
branching that tree.
Our grasp does not extend our reach.
Yeah, it does not extend our reach yet.
Yeah. Well, to me that just makes it clear that we're not too big for our britches.
No,
we're sticking to our roots. We're bringing our loved ones in.
Speaking of big, though, Mr. Curtis, what's it like to have a stepchild that's, like, much larger than you?
You assume that. He might be also a giant. You don't know.
Frakes, I've never seen a man as large as you. And
You met Jeff.
I've met him once.
That's enough to know that Jeff is a huge person.
You're right.
Yeah.
Just a giant of a man.
Very nice man.
That's always my fallback whenever somebody's like, "How are you so big?" I'm like, "Meet Jeff. I'm normal."
So, Mr. Curtis, you work at NASA?
I work as a contractor for NASA. I work at the Kennedy Space Center, and I work there as a software engineer on the what's known as exploration ground systems, and we do all of the ground processing and checkouts for the new Artemis program, which is going to be sending men and women back to putting boots on the moon, and then eventually, within about 10 to 15 years, hopefully on the surface of Mars.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that man is sending people into space.
Well, since we have you here, the reason I wanted to be here is a few years ago, NASA put out that commercial about they're going to the moon and they're not coming back. Now, it seemed optimistic and stuff, but to me it was kind of ominous. Like, they're done with Earth and they're going to the moon, and I'm just wondering how accurate my thought process was. Are they trying to escape this planet?
Well, I don't know where you heard that, but the mantra was basically, we're going back to the moon and we're going back to stay. They're building, one of the things that they are doing with the Artemis program is they are basically building a much smaller version of what is today known as the International Space Station, and it's going to be known as the Gateway. And the Gateway is going to be it's an elliptical orbit around the moon, so that there's always a clear line of sight for communications with Earth. Unlike when they did the Apollo missions back in the 60s and early 70s, where when the Apollo spacecraft would orbit on the backside of the moon, they'd have radio outages.
Huh.
So this is to prevent radio outages. That's cool.
So it's kind of like an ISS, but instead of orbiting Earth, it's orbiting the moon?
Correct. It's going to be much smaller, and its purpose is going to be different. It's basically going to be a staging area for so that when astronauts leave the Gateway, they can land directly on the moon. And then when they leave the moon, they'll go back to the Gateway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Other docking spacecraft like the Orion will be one of the first that goes there. I do believe SpaceX eventually has plans to send a Dragon capsule there at some point in the future, but I haven't heard anything about that. But I do know that NASA awarded SpaceX the contract for the lunar lander, which is going to be, I don't know if you're following space at all, but Elon out in Texas is developing that Starship, and they've been doing those test flights where they take the spaceship and they do a belly flop, and then they turn the rocket back vertical to land. And so a modified version of that is going to be used as the lunar lander for the Artemis missions.
Oh, that's cool. So it's still an intact spaceship that they can then fly off the moon.
Correct. So it'd be like science fiction that we had in the 50s and 60s where the rocket lands upright and then the same rocket takes back off again. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds like science fiction now.
Now, I do have a question. I remember starting seeing the ads for "We're going to the moon and we're not coming back." Shortly after James Cameron made it to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, what did he find down there?
Oh, I have no
That made-
idea. I've heard so many different things about that. That's a whole nother topic though.
Well, my thinking is he saw Godzilla and he was like, "Nope, to the moon. We're done."
Just to remind you, this is not a video. So if you want to wink to let us know, like, I know, but I can't say it while we're being recorded, just, feel free to wink.
If you go out of bounds on any questions, I am under. If you ask any questions that are out of bounds, I'm under not only NASA policy not to talk about things that are not public knowledge, but I'm also under a non-disclosure agreement with the contractor I work for. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
If you go out of bounds, I will let you know.
Well, then, are there aliens out there? Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way.
Oh, look at that wink. He winked.
I would refer you to the videos that the Pentagon is releasing for UFOs on that one.
Yeah, no kidding. I just saw that recently where the Pentagon's like, "Yeah, we're going to declassify all the UFO stuff." I think it's because those are all the species that have been eradicated already and are no longer, allowed back on the planet.
Well, ironically enough, there was a movie that came out in 1980, if you ever get a chance to watch it. If any of you ever seen the movie Hangar 18?
Oh, it's been a long time.
That kind of depicted a space shuttle mission. And this was actually, I think this movie came out about a year or so before the first space shuttle actually took off, which was STS-1 in 1981. But basically, it depicted an alien encounter, and the astronauts that flew the shuttle spotted it on radar. The government did a big cover-up and removed the blip from the radar, and then astronauts wanted to get to the bottom of it, so they ended up out at Hangar 18 out in Groom Lake, Nevada, and uncovered the truth. And basically something happened, and the entire area got leveled, and literally the only thing left standing was this UFO.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that's not the movie I was thinking of. I was thinking about the movie that had the kid who had progeria, and they like cast him as an alien in a Western, and he ended up getting shot.
Don't know if I've seen
That movie is called the Aurora Encounter. Apparently these people...
How accurate is Mars Attack?
Okay.
Well, if I recall correctly, the way our satellite networks are set up, it takes, I want to say, 22 minutes for 4K video to get from Mars to Earth. So that recent where they sent the Mars lander, but that latest mission, I don't know if you saw the 4K video from that, but that was really cool because you got to see in 4K the lander landing, and the parachutes deploying in 4K, and I think that's the first time that we've ever done high def video from another planet. That was really cool.
That is pretty awesome, actually, that we can do high def video of other planets now.
And they have a I don't know if you saw it, they have a remote control helicopter they've been flying around now.
That's what I was gonna say. You guys put a helicopter on the rover, and it's...
I'm pretty stoked about the video where you see that Mars's sky looks not so different from Earth's. Like, it's not a red sky like they always portray in the movies. It's kind of bluish green, just like ours. Or it's like gray, I guess, which is not bluish green at all.
22 minutes it takes for a video to get from Mars.
I think that's about what it is approximately, yeah. It's just under half an hour.
That's an insane amount of distance. If it takes... You figure, I upload a video on right now, and somebody anywhere on the planet can see it in like less than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
22 minutes for a video to make it that far is insane.
Well, imagine trying to update software or trying to reboot a computer and waiting 22 minutes to see if it comes back up.
That is terrifying. That is terrifying, actually, to think if you got to reboot your life support
22
It's
minutes
like,
is a long time.
22 minutes. Hope you can hold your breath.
They teased that, or they did mention that in what was that? The Martian movie,
Yeah.
and the book where it was like he could only communicate. It was like every so many hours because of the position of the planet and how long it took. Like,
right now with the
it.
current generation of rocket technology we have, once the planets align, Earth and Mars align in orbit around the sun approximately every 18 months. And when the planets are aligned properly, we can get from Earth to Mars. The one-way journey takes about 5 months.
That's to send like something to Mars, physically to Mars.
Correct.
Jesus.
And then you have to wait 18 months for the planets to realign. So you'd have to wait about 18 months for the planets to realign to make that trip in only 5 months.
Jeez, the amount of planning and bureaucratic organization that it takes to make spaceflight happen boggles my mind. You can't make mistakes on something like that. You know, people die and billions of dollars get wasted.
That's why we test.
Yeah.
What was really neat was when they were doing the first moon landing back in the 60s, they had the girl standing next to the pile of code she written by hand, or she wrote by hand, and it's as tall as her, checking all that stuff without computers.
Well, interesting little side note, the amount of paperwork that was generated to get the first shuttle off the ground back in 1981, the stack of paperwork was taller than the shuttle and the launch tower that launched it.
That's insane.
Is that just like, what's all in that paperwork? Like, what are they signing off on?
We decimated entire forest.
Well, anything that was tested, anything that, like any software updates, work orders for various things, parts ordered. I mean, there's all kinds of things that paperwork is used for because everything has to be tracked.
Even down to the smallest like wing nut or thumb screw or something. Account for.
The interesting thing about the technology that we're using today, when you look at the new rocket that we're building, and I say the proverbial we, it's the nation's space program, obviously, but a lot of the hardware is space shuttle program derived, which of course the space shuttle was designed in the early 70s. And so what they've done is the main engines for the first 4 rockets they're building were all flown on previous space shuttle missions. So they're old, reused engine, rebuilt, refurbished engines. And so, but what they've done, we're going to go back. I think, Matt, you were still living with us in 2011 when the final space shuttle landed, and I remember we were outside and the sonic booms hit and all the ducks are quacking, the birds were whatnot.
Yep.
You got interesting
flocks of sandhill cranes.
Well, an interesting fact. I mean, our cell phones today have more power than the space shuttle computers had. They never really updated the operating systems or the memory those machines had. So those space shuttle main computers had a whopping 64K of memory, even in 2011. So, you know, a lot of our task has been updating what are known as PLCs, which are the sensors that allow you to collect data and telemetry off all the sensors from the different components in the rocket and whatnot. So we updated all the computer software and all the computer hardware and whatnot, bringing it up to 21st century standards so that we can do high-speed telemetry now. And the resolution of data we have is hundreds of times more resolution of data than we had during shuttle. Yet it's the same hardware, but it's giving us so much more data and clarity. They're also the engines are more efficient, and
So I've got this theory. 2011, they were only using 64K of information. That's the same that we were using in 64 in the 60s. So here's my theory.
Well, it was cutting edge in 1970s when it was designed.
Okay, so 1970s cutting edge technology.
Yep.
30 years later, we're still using it. I believe that there is some correlation between us using that technology to that like Stone Age technology and not getting out into space to the fact that now the Pentagon is like, hey, here's all the alien footage. Those were the aliens that were keeping us using that shitty technology. And we finally got rid of them. We kicked them off the planet or whatever. And now they're like, okay, now you can progress.
Here's another example for you.
He winked.
You know, the Russians, their space agency is called Roscosmos, and they are still flying the
dope.
Soyuz rockets that were designed during the Apollo era in the 60s. And so their technology is even older than the space shuttles was. So, I mean, yes, they've updated it over time, but yeah, their systems are old and antiquated. And they actually had a shuttle, I think, that flew one time. It was called the Buran, and it flew once. And with the declassification of data after the fall of the Soviet Union, they actually did have a competing rocket to the Saturn V. It was called the N1. I think they actually got 4 N1s launched off the ground, and all 4 exploded in flight. Nobody was killed during those flights. They were all unmanned test flights, but still, yeah.
And you talk about upgrading the systems. That's why most hospitals are still using really old, like Windows 95. Is because updating all that takes a lot of work, and you have to retrain everybody, so it's easier sometimes just to keep it.
Yeah.
But, and from 1965, you have to do it at this point to get better, pictures and whatnot.
Now I don't feel so bad about the computer at work has Windows Vista on it still.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Hey, Vista's more advanced than 95.
Yeah, but I wouldn't.
By
I'd
like
rather use
that
95. Lord. So, Mr. Curtis, are you familiar with the Flat Earth Society?
Well,
and some of their theories?
I've heard about that, and I saw a couple of tweets they put out where I saw a funny one that was snapshotted. It was the Flat Earth Society bragging that they had members around the globe. Yeah, they actually said that.
The globe.
Yeah.
Well, the plate is round, so I don't see your issue here.
Yeah, it's round the long way.
Well, it was back in 2017. Elon Musk decided to troll them, and he was asking the Flat Earth Society, well, how about starting a Flat Mars Society? And they came back and responded, oh, no need to do that. We know Mars is round.
Yeah, no, somewhere what's the speed of gravity at 7 point something meters a second?
I think it's 9.8 meters per second. I can't remember.
Our terminal velocity. Whatever it was, I'm bad at math, so I'm probably disappointing. But that's what they think gravity is that the flat Earth is spinning through space at exactly that speed, and that's what's to attribute for gravity. And that we're the only flat planet, and all the other ones are round.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah, we're special.
My favorite one is that what keeps the water in is the giant ice wall that's around, and NASA has armed guards keeping people from seeing over the other side.
He winked again.
I am a big fan of the Antarctica globe or Antarctica dome. Are y'all familiar with that? How in the Encyclopedia Britannica from the 1930s, they talk about how there's a 1,400 meter tall dome in Antarctica.
Is that where Santa Claus lives?
Wrong pole,
Oh,
but
the other one.
yeah,
That's how he throws you off, though.
exactly.
That's how he keeps you from reaching it.
Yeah, apparently 9.807 is the speed of gravity. So, sorry, I had to look that up while I was vamping about Antarctica.
No, it's
But no, I saw a TikTok where somebody opened up an Encyclopedia Britannica and opened it to Antarctica, and it talks about a 1,400 meter dome that they found there, and it's got taken out of all the encyclopedias since.
Well, I'd like to bring up my favorite quote, Frakes, and that's "Don't trust everything you see on the internet," and that was said by Abraham Lincoln. So,
yes. I was just wondering if anybody else heard it besides me. I want to see how deep that.
No, I've never
I don't
heard
know
that.
if I heard that one
rumor goes.
specifically, but in loose relation to what you were talking about things being removed from textbooks and encyclopedias, we were loosely discussing Hangar 18 earlier. It was sometime in the mid 1950s that the information about Groom Lake, which is that area in Nevada where Hangar 18 and that secret military base is, was removed from all textbooks here in the United States. So if you go to look that up on like Google Earth or whatnot, that's or even in an encyclopedia, if it wasn't published before, unless it was published before like 1958 or something, it's not going to be in there or even on the maps.
See, that's the kind of spooky stuff that really makes me wonder.
I don't know. Our universe is so big. We can't be the only thing out there, man.
Oh, I agree. It only if you take an image of Earth and then zoom out to just into our galaxy, into the Milky Way. We're such a tiny, tiny little speck in some backwater spiral of the Milky Way that it's like, oh, those are all stars, and stars sometimes have planets around them, kind of like ours. So,
well, it's in theory that in the center of the Milky Way is a black hole, right? Slowly sucking everything in.
I don't think that's a theory so much as it is, or it's the theory in the sense of it's the same as the theory of evolution, how it is provable. Like the gravity of the black hole is what causes the Milky Way to coalesce. If my layman's understanding is what it is, which is probably not, but yeah.
I'm a big proponent of that there's definitely life outside of our planet out there, but I'm very hopeful that they're better than we are.
Well, that's one of the couple of theories of why we haven't met life yet is because we're one of the firsts. We're one of the first forms of life. And that one and that just everything's so spaced out it's hard to reach us. Yeah. Without, like, I don't know, wormholes or teleporters or something like that.
Joe Rogan's my favorite I don't like Joe Rogan all the time, but where he talked about aliens coming to this planet for the first time, and they see the blue waters and the green forest, and they're like, oh my God, it's beautiful. And then they see, like, Vegas, and they're like, oh no, it's got a growth. we don't want to catch what's on that planet. So the aliens left because, cities look like, I don't know.
Tumors.
Yeah. You got
warts. No, it's got humans.
It's got human warts.
Avoid.
Do you have any interesting theories like that, Mr. Curtis, about, just stuff in space, like what we think's going on, but we're not sure?
He doesn't have theories. He knows.
that would be for a private discussion.
Oh, there's the winks. That's fine. You don't have to.
Well, here's one. What got you? What interested you into working for NASA? What was it that drove you into that field?
Money.
Money. Well, the money's good too. Yeah, obviously. But I guess it was when I was a kid growing up. My parents used to take me to Kennedy Space Center on summer vacation. And my late father, was a huge fan of NASA and the space program. I was still young enough to remember the last few Apollo missions that took off and flew. And so I'm blessed to work with a team of really smart people that I work with. Our team lead, I want to say he's in his mid-60s. Still sharp as a tack mentally. He started at the Kennedy Space Center the day after Space Shuttle Columbia arrived at Kennedy Space Center in 1979, and he's been working there as a software engineer for over 40 years, and being able to be brought into the fold and working under somebody like that that's had the experience working, worked on shuttle for 30 years and whatnot. That was a really, we were very blessed to have somebody that had stuck around and been involved in that. But I had always wanted to work there since I was a little kid and been around that, and just timing never worked out for me. So I worked in other areas, and I actually did spend a stint working for Boeing as a contractor out there on the Delta IV rockets, and I was out there for about a year working on those, and ended up just. I never thought I'd get back out there after the shuttle program, and I thought that was going to be it. I'd never be back out there, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time for a job interview, and the stars aligned, and the rest is history. I've been out there a little over 5 years now.
Is there a chance with your position that you'll get to leave the planet?
Not likely.
No. Is there a chance in my lifetime that I'll be able to just buy a ticket and leave the planet? Or is that a wink? Is that a wink moment?
No, actually, I want to say, a lot of people have heard of Elon Musk and SpaceX. I mean, they're going to be selling seats on private Dragon flights, but also, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but Jeff Bezos, who is the founder of Amazon, has founded a rocket company, and they're headquartered here at the Kennedy Space Center, and that company is called Blue Origin. And they're going to be starting flights later this year, and it's not an orbital flight. It is considered a suborbital flight, so the rocket goes straight up and down. But you're going to be able to go into outer space and float and see the curvature of the Earth, and that is for scientists and tourists. So.
And
that's further than the what do they call the vomit rocket? It's the plane that goes. Mm-hmm. It'll be going further than that, then, huh?
The vomit comet, yes, sir. Yeah. The demarcation line for outer space is a term known as the Kármán line, and I want to say it's approximately 300. I want to say it's 340,000 kilometers, I believe. So as long as you're above that, you're technically in outer space.
Oh wow!
And I think that that capsule that little rocket sends up goes to about 360,000 feet.
That's cool. Now that beggars the question: will we ever see Earth to Earth rocket travel? Like, if I want to get to New York and I'm in LA. Shoot a rocket straight up and then let it fall back down so that you're not on or let's just say New York to Australia.
Yeah, actually that's one of Elon Musk's goals for SpaceX with that new Starship is eventually having that a rocket that is reliable and is reusable as an airliner, so that you'll be able to fly from anywhere point to point on planet Earth in under an hour.
Awesome!
Wow!
I'm down. Let's do that.
I think that's an achievable goal within our lifetimes.
That's how far I drive to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So be like, I gotta go work halfway across the planet. Just an hour flight. Wow.
Sorry, I gotta go work in China. Be right back.
Yeah.
Now that does bring. Speaking of work, that does bring a very important question to me. What licenses are required, and how do I get them to drive that shuttle crawler, the one that they put the rocket on to take it to the launch?
It's funny you mention that because the contract I work on at the Kennedy Space Center, one of the roles our contractor does is actually operating that crawler transporter. And there's a certification process, just like if you work at a home improvement store. You have to be licensed to operate a forklift by the company to be able to operate it. Well, it's the same thing with that crawler transporter.
Well, I've got a forklift certification.
Yeah.
You said it's a crawler?
Yeah, the crawler. It's like 2 stories tall, or a story tall.
Oh, it's about 2.5 stories tall.
Okay.
And it drives up underneath the launch pad and picks it up and can take the entire launch pad on the rocket and the entire rocket stack, the entire 4-mile trip out to the launch.
I'm looking at it now. That's awesome.
Yeah,
'Cause-
yeah. I just want to be able to drive it.
Unloaded, I think it goes about 1.5 miles per hour, and fully loaded with a rocket on it, it goes, I think, 0.8 miles per hour.
Now imagine this, that vehicle, but with containers, like shipping containers, built into a house, and that's your
Mobile home. You
your
just built a
post-apocalyptic settlement.
trailer.
Yes.
That's
a very slow-moving trailer.
Well, we had a discussion one day at work. What would happen if at some point in the future, if NASA was ever completely defunded? What would you do with that big vehicle assembly building? And I know Matt has seen this building up close and personal. But for those of you that haven't, this is one of, I think, the second or third largest building in the world by volume.
What's it called again?
Vehicle assembly building.
It is so massive. It develops its own weather systems inside the building. Like, it creates its own clouds. Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now. That is gigantic.
Yes.
It looks like the Costco from Idiocracy.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Welcome to NASA. I love you.
Yeah.
So
what's the NASA? I love you.
Sorry, continue. I wanted to know what I was looking at too.
To give you an idea, if you're looking at a picture of the vehicle assembly building, you'll see there's an American flag on the left side of it. You can stack 12 Greyhound buses end to end, and that's how long that American flag is on the side of that building.
Lord.
Yeah. It'll really trigger your megaphobia if you have it.
Yeah, that megalophobia. That is
Megalophobia.
I mean, and the cool thing also I learned with NASA and the the platform they move the rockets on, when those are launching off, especially at night, it looks like daytime. Like I saw the video of the SpaceX one that just left. It's like it lit up the entire sky, and I was like, "That's crazy."
Oh, yeah. It was the not the next to last Starlink rocket, because my house is about depending on which launch pad they go up from, my house is about 6 to 10 miles from the launch pads. So if the wind and the clouds are right, and depending on the trajectory of that they're launching to, it shakes the house and the windows and whatnot. When we're up close, like there was last week, I happened to be there for one of the Falcon 9 Starlink missions, and the SpaceX has their own internet company. They're starting it's called Starlink, Starlink, and it's a low Earth orbiting cluster of satellites that are going to be able to provide internet to areas of the planet that normally would not have high-speed internet, like and they're going to be eventually supporting the North and South poles as well. And so they're deploying this, especially up in like northern Canada. But anyway, when one of these rockets launch locally, and you're only because where I work, the building I work at is called the LCC, or the Launch Control Center. It's where the firing rooms are for processing the actual launch and monitoring all the telemetry for the engines and the fuel and whatever not. But when you're about 3 to 4 miles away, even in the bright of daylight, you really almost can't look at the flame of the coming out of the nozzles of the engines, because it's so bright it'll burn it almost burns your retinas. It's almost like a welding flame. It's so bright.
And that's why y'all just dump a bunch of ice on it while it's launching, right?
Yeah.
It's just
with the Starlink thing, the satellite systems are hovering. They're supposed to give internet to like most of the planet at some point.
Yes.
That's cool and all, but like, who decides where those can go? Like, does that interfere with like when you're trying to launch rockets and stuff? And like, how much? I mean, I'm sure there's anything that leaves planet Earth, whether it's an airplane or whatnot, all that has to be approved by both the FAA and the FCC. So SpaceX has licensing for the orbits that they're in, and so do SpaceX's competing companies. I believe there's one called OneWeb, and then
Blue Origin has got a competing company that's supposed to be launching internet satellites as well. So,
but is that like a worldwide organization, or is that just like an American organization that gives that kind of approval?
The United States is the only country on the planet thus far that has private companies sending stuff like this into space.
Right.
The other countries that are launching stuff, such as China, Russia, India, etc., for example, France, they're all state sponsored via their respective governments. So
maybe some of those countries should have a more outside influence, because that whole China rocket thing.
Yeah, the only thing I could say about that is, if you wanted me to, I could quote what our administrator Bill Nelson said. But they're suffering from some of the same things as you saw, like with the missile testing that Kim Un-jung was doing in North Korea. You don't get approval for launching, and then that doesn't warrant any maritime traffic or airline traffic, so it's not being coordinated at all. So you don't know if you're flying that rocket or missile into an airplane or whatnot. And so that's one thing that the United States and our FAA is really good about, is making sure that you're missing space debris and airline traffic and whatnot.
That brings me to another point too, with other countries being in jurisdiction. What laws do they follow when astronauts are on the ISS? Because there's several from different countries. Who's is there any
it's space law?
Yeah, so maritime law where there's kind of no law, or it's I don't know.
Are there space pirates? Is what he's getting.
That's not what he's getting.
Not yet, but just like with anything, I think eventually that's going to happen.
What a future.
A hypothetical question: what happens if there was a crime committed on the ISS? Who would have authority? Right. Would it be Roscosmos or would it be NASA? And then, I don't know the answer to that question. That's actually a really good question. I don't have an answer for you.
That's no problem.
There should be a joint between everybody who's up there. There should be a representative of each country.
There is. There's always, I think, as far as I know, there's always been a Russian presence and there's always been an American presence. That space station has been manned for over 20 consecutive years.
That's insane.
Has it really been that long?
We've had a human presence in outer space in orbit for over 20 consecutive years on that station. Jeez. And you don't a lot of people don't realize how big that space station is. The length of the International Space Station is over 3 football field lengths.
Oh wow!
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's gigantic.
Yeah.
And so some of it is, lots of different countries contributed to it, but it was primarily the United States and Russia that built and lifted that thing into orbit. And the space shuttle did the majority of the heavy lifting because of its cargo capacity.
One more question about this this moon base. That's what it is.
Essentially,
basically be. It's a base that orbits the moon. Is that also going to be like a shipyard for our further exploration into space, where you build ships? And
there's been talk that it might be, and I think once they start getting to a point where they start building either nuclear powered rockets or some other type of propulsion system that can get these space vehicles faster than they are now. I think it's been proven by scientists and engineers, for example, out at JPL, that it is theoretically possible that we can get almost right up to what would be considered in science fiction FTL speed, where we should be able to propel a vehicle right almost up to the speed of light.
Is that using the ionic propulsion, which just continuously accelerates? Without any
that's one technology that is being investigated.
The faster it goes, the faster it goes.
Yeah, I know. There's a couple of them that are being investigated for that. But again, something that's going to be large enough to be able to take humans from planet to get out into the outer planets and whatnot. A spacecraft that's big enough to do that may need to be assembled in space at some point. I mean, if you look at science fiction, that's how. Let's take like Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica. All of those huge ships were assembled off planet in orbit around a planet in space.
That I never thought of that actually. That makes a lot of sense to do that off of the planet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you don't have to fight gravity getting it out into space, and you're not fighting against. The only thing you're really fighting against in 0G vacuum of space is the vacuum of space.
It'd be funny you drop it and there it goes.
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. The biggest danger in outer space, believe it or not, is radiation from the solar wind. And that's one of the things. That's another huge concern when you start talking about sending humans to Mars, for example. Mars does not have a magnetosphere like Earth does. So you're getting bombarded with tons of radiation. So you got to have a way to shield those astronauts, not only on the trip, inbound and outbound trip, but while they're on the surface of the planet. They got to have housing either in caves or housing that can block that radiation.
Yeah, we can't have a whole planet full of Hulks.
That's gamma. Gamma radiation.
That was one of the conspiracy theories I saw, was when they sent people to the moon last. They haven't sent anybody back because of the radiation, and that's why people are questioning if we ever sent people to the moon to begin with. It's because now there's this radiation out there. But then I saw
Buzz Aldrin?
What's his name?
Buzz Aldrin.
Who punched that dude in the face? Yeah, Buzz Aldrin punched that guy. Nobody throws a hook like that and then go to the moon.
Well, I actually heard that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong both agreed to fake the moon landing, but it was going to be too expensive to fake it, so they just decided to shoot it on location.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of Kubrick. Kubrick's very expensive to get, so...
Yeah, they couldn't get Kubrick, so they just had to go to the moon instead.
Kubrick only films on location.
That's right.
Well, I was actually reading something, and Neil Armstrong...
Yep, well, Mom did make a special appearance.
And special guest, Frakes' mom.
Board meeting in history.
Well, that's just because you wanted to hijack the noob show.
No,
That's all.
I didn't want to hijack Noob Show. I want to be on my own Noob Show.
Of course, it's working on it.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. Well, I know that we've picked Curtis's brain for 45 minutes about space and just space.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's not every day you talk to a NASA man.
Yeah. We haven't even gotten into his old school gaming. He was telling me, what was it? There was a game that you used to play online.
Yeah, I used to be one of the old Commodore Amiga dogs, and I remember it was around 1988 or 1989. There was a game that came out for the Amiga called Firepower. If you've ever seen it, basically it was like a two-dimensional version of what Battlefield would be today. And so it was two modems could dial into one another, so that direct connect, and you could play your neighbor like across the street or whatnot. And so you didn't have to be playing in the same house or whatnot. And it was really cool. It was sort of like a capture the flag. So basically you had to find the building on the map where your enemy's flag was, and you'd have to pick it up with your tank and then drive it back to your own base.
Now, for the listener who doesn't know, dial-up is what the internet used to be before it came in the mail.
Yeah, that's kind of like... See, I'm before both of those.
Yeah, that's actually predating the internet the public internet by a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Nuts. I mean, a lot of the older consoles, like, they had ports for dial or to go onto the internet. It's just very unused. Yeah.
Hang up the phone. I'm trying to play Ultima Online over here.
Yeah.
Before my 12,000 hours of AOL runs out.
Yes.
Hang up the phone. I'm trying to look at naked girls.
Well, I just think it's interesting how I've seen video gaming evolve over the years.
Yeah.
I gotta say, my favorite genre is still probably either the sports car driving simulations like Gran Turismo or Forza Motorsport, or anything that's first-person shooter. You had Doom and you had Quake, and then there was the Star Wars Doom. It was called Star Wars Dark Forces. And I think as an avid gamer, Star Wars Dark Force was probably my favorite video game series of all time, and it followed the character eventually through the different versions of the game. As the years went along, he became a Jedi Knight and worked alongside Luke Skywalker to help rebuild the Jedi Order and whatnot after the events of Episode 6. And I really so coming from that aspect, the Star Wars Dark Forces and Star Wars Jedi Knight focused around a character by the name of Kyle Katarn. And when I saw what Disney did with Rogue One, I'm just going to be blunt. That royally pissed me off as a fan of the game, because they basically completely did away with Kyle Katarn's character in that extended universe, and they completely reimagined who stole the Death Star plans. Well, in the video game series, in the first video game, Star Wars Dark Forces, you play Kyle Katarn and you steal the Death Star plans. So you can imagine how I felt about that when I saw that hit the movie theaters. Albeit, I loved the ending scene where Darth Vader's hacking up all the rebels on Princess Leia's ship, and
it really drives home the fact that Vader is in fact a badass.
Yeah.
Certifiable.
So NASA is full of nerds, huh? That's.
I don't know if you can see my shirt or not.
I thought he was leaving. Oh, that's a cool shirt.
Space Invaders.
It's a NASA version of Pac-Man.
Oh, that's right.
That's awesome. So I mean, we're all nerds. Do you play tabletop role-playing games, Mr. Curtis? Sorry.
I haven't for a long time personally. I want to say there was a merge. There was one video game that came out, I want to say it was around 2002, 2003, that attempted to merge first-person shooters with MMORPGs, and it was really popular for the year or two it was out before they ruined it with the second version. And that was a video game called PlanetSide.
Mm-hmm.
That was an awesome game. And then when PlanetSide 2 came out, they really destroyed it because of the way they did the mapping and the way they handled the online accounts. So I was really hoping that those two merged genres would really take off.
I like video games that find a way to merge two different genres well. There was one on Super Nintendo called Act Risers, where it took city building but also merged it into a Castlevania style game.
Oh, cool.
Where like you would build a city, and then like you were the god, and then people would like pray to you like, oh god, we found in this cave here there's some great demon, and then the camera would swoop in this old 16-bit video game, and it would go to Castlevania, and you were like this paladin or whatever. You'd have to go fight the thing so that your city could keep getting built. I love that game. But the second one, they did this. They were like, well, let's just do the Castlevania stuff, and I hated it because all the city building stuff was gone. Yeah, merging two genres together, when it works well, it's a lot of fun.
But when they finally took the first person shooters really online, the two video games I remember, it was around the 1997 to 99 time frame. You had Unreal Tournament, and you had a video game called Shogo, Mobile Armor Division. And those were the two we were playing in the LAN centers and doing LAN parties with the most often. Obviously, Unreal Tournament was way more popular.
But Shogo's like a mech game,
yeah,
right?
It's like anime and mech mixed into one. It was really cool.
It looks good.
Yeah.
It looks like the old Unreal tournaments, which I mean, those were fun to play.
Yeah.
Just because, the flat cannon and stuff, it bounced off the walls.
Exactly. Exactly.
No.
And then Well, so then I remember we had a friend of ours. I want to say it was about a year before. What was the new Pokemon game where it introduced augmented reality?
Pokemon Go.
Go.
Pokemon Go, yeah. I have a few friends that are video game developers, and he was showing me his engine that he was developing for a Chinese movie he was doing, and he comes into my house with the augmented reality, and he's showing me, and he's putting things on my like video game pieces on my floor and whatnot. And I'm like, holy crap, that's cool as all get out. And then when we saw Pokemon Go, that was like, okay, this has got some potential. I think what I find interesting now is the whole way video gaming is evolving with Twitch, with esports, and with the spectator, with the way it's gone with COVID and the way NASCAR went completely esport for a while, and the NASCAR drivers were only driving online, and
That'd be cool.
I'm just curious to see what the next 5 to 10 years has in store as things happen, and I'm curious to see what you guys end up doing with what, because even my own son started a Twitch channel in the last couple of weeks, and I'll admit I don't quite understand what the fascination is because I'm an old gamer and I haven't done it yet. So I'll admit I need to learn about it and see what's up with it because it seems really popular and a lot of people love it.
Are you familiar with the Half-Life series?
Oh, absolutely.
Half-Life, of
Have
course.
Have you played Half-Life Alex? Or have you just heard about Half-Life Alex?
I haven't heard about Alex. No, I know who Alex Vance is.
They made after the show. I gotta show you this. They made a VR game that takes place after Half-Life 1 and before Half-Life 2, and it's completely in VR by Valve.
It is.
Nice.
It is one of the most beautiful VR games there is, and I'm a big fan of the Half-Life series myself.
So is that available on Steam right now?
It is, but it's VR only, which is the only downside. And speaking of, watching video games, Half-Life Alex is basically a movie you could watch.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool.
And especially if you don't want to put the investment in VR and stuff, it's, that's the only way it's played. So, and it's a lot of fun. I'm still playing right through it.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that watching people play video games, watching people play tabletop games has become this like minor industry online. That's our whole business model. And granted, if we didn't have anybody watching and we didn't have anybody giving us money, we would still do this because it's fun for us. And I like listening to us play our session again. But it's just really weird.
If you want any proof that you're onto something, and granted, I admit it, I don't understand it, and I wish you guys the best of luck, but if you want proof in the pudding, when I'm not going to delve into politics, but we all know what's transpired in the last 2 years with different things going on in the world in general. And we've had some TV shows canceled and whatnot. And I'll use like Live PD as Cops and Live PD as a perfect example. We've got this, some people have got this general mentality that all cops are bad, this, that, and the other. And so what I've seen happen recently, your mom and I have been watching a couple of different YouTube channels. There's one in particular we're watching.
Toker, your mom and he are watching this stuff together.
Yeah. So there's this YouTube channel called Real World Police, and most of the footage is out of Central Florida here. So they concentrate on Osceola, Orange, Seminole County, and the Orlando Police Department.
And meth.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's probably really methy.
Well, they've got this one character, and so basically what they do is, I guess they either through FOIA request or whatnot, once the cases go to trial, or once they go through a time where these the body cam footage from these cops becomes public record, they edit out any personally identifiable information like phone numbers, social security numbers, credit card numbers, stuff like that. But then they put it together in sometimes it might be a 20-minute episode, it might be an hour and 20 minutes. But there's this one character they're following out of Orlando who right now runs a funeral escort business, and he's been arrested multiple times for impersonating a law enforcement officer. And
I'm already down.
It's just real life drama. And as a matter of fact, he was on Dr. Phil about 6 to 8 weeks ago, and was trying to BS Dr. Phil, like, oh, I do this and I do that. And I mean, there's been a couple of different YouTube channels that have spawned off of just covering what this lunatic is doing. Just nothing but online drama.
How do you skip past funeral escort business and keep going? Like, that's
I need some clarification.
Apparently, Florida state law apparently in the state of Florida, there's some statutes that allow a corporation to escort funerals. So basically, they're allowed to have flashing lights in the colors of either purple and or orange. And so
I thought prostitution.
I think Toker and I were on the same page. Funeral prostitution? Are they fresh?
This is how you get over Uncle's death.
But you know what? What's so funny, guys, is when we first saw that, I felt the same way. I said, you need an escort to go to a funeral? And is this kind of like bringing some weird guy to a wedding so you don't have to go by yourself? What's that all about? And then I realized
you can do that.
See, that's a lot cleaner. It's a lot cleaner and a lot more wholesome than where my mind went.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't realize that Florida's corpse desecration laws were so lax. I didn't know that was a thing. Oh, there's Kenny.
This is for the audio only podcast.
Yeah, just so you know, this is audio
cat.
only. Look at this cat.
Look at this cat. We'll stop talking about funeral.
But yeah, anyway, the gist of my point for bringing up that subject, though, was that they don't just cover this one character, but it basically shows like a law enforcement interaction from beginning to end, where they're investigating either like a DUI or somebody impersonating a law enforcement officer. Maybe they're interviewing witnesses to a crime, and it's nothing like we ever saw in live PD or cops. I mean, it's the actual body cam footage, and there might be some subtitles at the bottom of the screen, but that tell you what's going on in the background and what you're seeing and whatnot. But it's the actual real world event that's happening from the body cam. It's really interesting. So I don't know if we probably will never see those type of shows come back online, but I mean, I think between police interaction and video games and whatnot, I think this is a trend that's probably here to stay for a while, and may include other things.
It's like it's wholesome voyeurism, basically.
Yeah, it's
kind of what it is.
Getting back to NASA and SpaceX and whatnot, going full circle back around that, with the advent of the way with not just Zoom technology, but like with it's a piece of software, your mom's nonprofit organization is looking into. We're looking at it's OBS Studio, which is
subscribe to Be Unique magazine, by the way.
Yeah,
everybody knows. Subscribe to Be Unique magazine. BeUnique.org. Be Unique. Anyway, no problem. Thank you for the plug.
Yeah.
If you're gonna plug it right.
We've seen an advent of, I'm just gonna call them what they all are. They're basically space nerds and SpaceX fanboys, and they've started these dedicated webcams. Like if you look at what's going on in Texas, there's a channel called Lab Padre, because it takes place out at Padre Island in Texas and Boca Chica, Texas. And there's at least 3 or 4 dedicated YouTube channels that do nothing but follow SpaceX's operations building this Starship out there. And I mean, they've got like dozens and dozens of cameras that are on live feed 24/7 around their space facilities. We've never had that type of fan interaction watching what's going on in real world science and getting to outer space. The world's never seen this before, and it's great.
Now, I will say, when I was on cable and actually watching cable TV, there was this one channel that had no commercials, and it was just a live feed of NASA building space shuttles. And I was kind of enthralled by that for a little while, and then I got bored. But because I get bored easily. It's like nobody's moving fast. Everybody's just kind of doing stuff.
Yeah, there's one channel called Lab Padre. Another channel that is got a little bit larger footprint because they have cameras at Vandenberg Space Force Base. They have cameras at here locally at Kennedy Space Center, and at the Air Force Station here is a full-on Space Force base. It's the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and they have a camera at the Port Canaveral. And they have one that's dedicated at the port, so that when the SpaceX boosters land out in the ocean, you can see them coming back on their little remote control barge, which they cutely named, "Of course I still love you."
That's great. How do I join Space Force? I don't really want to join the military, but I kind of want to join Space Force.
Well, you have to join the military. It is a military
I know, that's
branch.
fine. But the Space Force sounds like if I join for 5 years, we don't have stuff set up yet, so if I just join for 5 years and get out, I'll be fine.
I'll never see an alien in warfare.
I'm not sure how many of the Air Force bases got converted, because some Air Force bases and Air Force stations got converted to Space Force, and there I think is some Army and some Marine bases that got converted as well. Because I know the lead Space Force station is actually in Alabama. The local base didn't win that bid, and that's the Army's Redstone Arsenal there.
When I think space, I think Alabama.
No joke. Huntsville is all NASA. Is a good bit NASA in Huntsville, and then when you get into Decatur, that's all United Launch Alliance, which is the 50-50 venture between Boeing and Lockheed Martin. So they have the Atlas V rockets they build there, the Delta IV rockets, and the new Vulcan rockets that are going to start launching later this year. So, yeah, they've got a huge rocket factory out in Decatur.
Well, that just shows my ignorance, because apparently Alabama's all about some space.
But
yes, sir.
I think, Mr. Curtis, we are at the end of our hour.
Yeah, that was an hour that flew by.
Yeah, this is great. Do you want anything else you want to shout out besides Be Unique? Let's plug NASA.
I would also like to say that we've developed this trend in 12 episodes about us doing a lot of false information, and then you dropped episode 13, and we gave out a lot of real information. So you're going to throw some of your fans for a loop. I want to prepare you for the fallback of people come here for fake information, and we got lots of real information.
Yeah, fake information and dick jokes. That's what they're here for. We got none of that this go around.
Yeah. Anyway, so Mr. Curtis, anything else you want to shout out besides Be Unique Magazine? Please subscribe to Be Unique Magazine. Support NASA.
Hang on a second.
and Homebrew Detritus.
Yeah.
We're on par with NASA. I don't know if anybody
basically
knows
the same
that.
thing.
It's basically the same.
Yeah, we all have like a joke of the day in our department where we work, and it's usually either a cheesy dad joke or something to do with a pun or something like that that we will talk about. And right now, my role, although NASA's centers are technically open, they're still at what they call a phase 3 due to COVID. So 95% of the time, my job role is still teleworking. So last week I was on center all week, and I told Matt about my work schedule this weekend. So I was actually on center for all week last week. But that's one of the ways we keep things light is we'll end a meeting when we have our team meetings. We'll tell a couple of jokes, and then we'll get right back to work. It's a way to cut the day up nicely. So
it is.
It's kind of cheesy stuff like. Why can't carpenters make chairs? Because they only have table saws.
No.
That's funny.
One more before we go here.
I like how he gave you the platform to shout out anything you wanted, and you went with the table
Jokes.
joke.
It's great. I very
really
solid
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain puns to kleptomaniacs. They always take things literally.
Yep.
No. Stop that. You can't build rockets and tell jokes like that. You can't.
Mr. Curtis, I was going to invite you back on, but after that,
I think we've had enough.
No, but for real.
Wash our hands now.
Anytime you feel like coming on, you are always more than welcome. This is great. We can
Thank
talk
you.
old video games and science. It was a lot of fun. But Frakes, take us out, please.
Well, just wanted to say, first off, now Noob has your email. Get ready for that. That's a delight.
I send pictures of cows fucking to people, so.
It's not
Don't
pretty.
do that to his work email. Anyway, thanks for joining us on Noob Show. It's a subsidiary of Homebrew Detritus, and we're basically NASA. So check us out on YouTube. If you like this, you're going to hate our show, our main shows. But if you don't, if you like role-playing games and dice, and I got real awkward there. So that's what it is. The end.
And scene.